Okay, Kansas, Arizona, Florida, Illinois, and Ohio are all holding presidential primaries today. There are also some congressional races to watch. In California, there's a special election to replace former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. His seat opened up in December when he stepped down following his party's decision to oust him as Speaker. Voters will see 9 candidates on the ballot. Whoever wins will serve out the remainder of McCarthy's term until January of 2025. Meanwhile, in Ohio, Republicans are competing to take on incumbent Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown. Donald Trump has endorsed Bernie Moreno, while Republican Ohio Governor Mike DeWine is supporting State Senator Matt Dolan. We'll be watching that for more on the primary race and a look ahead to the general. Let's bring in NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki over at the big board. So what are you looking for? What's interesting you out of Ohio, Steve?
Yeah, and I think this is all the races going on around the country. This is clearly the marquee one today. This, Republican primary for the U.S. Senate in Ohio. And look, 3 candidates here. Frank LaRose, the Secretary of State. But the indications are that it's probably Bernie Moreno and Matt Dolan, who may be a notch or 2 ahead of LaRose coming in today. We'll see if there's any kind of a surprise. But the dynamic there, as you mentioned, is one where Moreno, Trump aligned, Trump endorsed, Trump in Ohio in the last few days to campaign for Moreno. Dolan, as you say, endorsed by Governor DeWine, also former Senator Rob Portman. And Dolan, remember, ran 2 years ago in the 2022 Republican primary for the Senate. And that was another race where J.D. Vance won that primary. He was endorsed by Trump. So Dolan has been in this situation before. Dolan had a close third in that primary 2 years ago. He won 2 counties in Ohio. One was Cuyahoga County, where Cleveland is. That's his neck of the woods. His family actually owns the Cleveland Guardians baseball team, and also Franklin County, where Columbus is. So 2 big, metropolitan areas in the state, more moderate Republicans in those areas. This is where Dolan did the best in 2022, but he wasn't able to do it in other areas of the state. And there are other areas of this state, too. Big blue-collar, working-class white population centers. That's been Trump's demographic wheelhouse. And those are areas where Dolan did very poorly 2 years ago. I think he'd need to improve in those areas to pull this out tonight. But we'll see what happens. And Democrats have made it clear that Moreno is their preferred candidate. They have spent money on ads that are pretty clearly meant to boost Moreno in this primary. Their belief is that Moreno would be the easiest candidate, and maybe easiest is the wrong word. Maybe least difficult is the right term. The least difficult candidate for Sherrod Brown to defeat in November. But Sherrod Brown's bigger challenge in November, no matter who wins this primary tonight. Let's just show you this. Here is the battleground, the Senate battleground this year, and there are 3 Democratic seats. West Virginia, Montana, and then Ohio is the 3rd. These are 3 Democratic-held seats right now that are up this year and where Donald Trump won in 2020. Obviously, he won West Virginia overwhelmingly. He won Montana very handily, and he won Ohio by 8 points. And the challenge for Sherrod Brown, and frankly for Democrats, they've already pretty much given up on West Virginia, but Democrats in Montana where Tester is running and in Ohio where Sherrod Brown is running is this: split ticket voting. That is likely what Democrats are counting on to keep control of the United States Senate this year. To have a state that votes for Donald Trump in the presidential election, but at the same time the voters vote for the Democrat in the Senate election. That's probably what Democrats are going to need in Ohio, and it's almost certainly what they're going to need in Montana. And just look at this, how split ticket voting has been on the decline. You went back to the 80s and 90s, it'd be 15, 16, 17 split ticket states. Look, it's come down to single digits. And then when Donald Trump emerged in 2016, split ticket voting almost completely vanished. In 2016, there wasn't a single state where the winner of the Senate race was different than the winner of the presidential race. In 2020, there was only one. That was Susan Collins in Maine. And so that's what Democrats, if they want to control the U.S. Senate, if they want to win Ohio, if they want to win Montana, that's the bigger picture trend that they have to buck. And that's the thing that's against them more probably than any particular candidate who emerges in these states.
So, Steve, let's stay on that big picture Senate map. You just highlighted Ohio and Montana, the split ticket phenomenon there that Democrats would need. Give us a quick overview, though, of some other tight races that are going to decide the balance of the Senate. Is there anything that you see that Democrats could potentially steal from Republicans?
Yeah, I mean, this is the problem for Democrats is, look, 2024, just play this back, Senate seats are for 6 years. So think about the class of senators who are up this year. There are senators who were in many cases elected or reelected in 2018. Remember, 2018 was a very good Democratic year in that Trump midterm. That was the blue wave year. 2012, a lot of these senators were elected or reelected too. Remember, that was Obama's reelection year. Obama carried states like Ohio in 2012. That helped Sherrod Brown win that year. 2006, if you go back further, that was a great Democratic year. Bush's second midterm, another blue wave year. So Democrats have really accumulated over the last several cycles with this class of senators a number of seats in, as I just said, vulnerable political territory for them. And now they're facing a different dynamic this year because those are the three obvious ones. But where else are we looking at Senate races? How about Pennsylvania? We know Pennsylvania is going to be a battleground state this November. Donald Trump may need to win Pennsylvania if he's going to win back the presidency. He did take it in 2016, Democratic held, but that could be tenuous. Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin's going to be up again. We know that's going to be a battleground state. Michigan, there's an open Senate race there currently held by Democrats. You have Arizona, where Kyrsten Sinema is not running for re-election. Democrats hoping to hold on to that seat, too. Carrie Lake may emerge as the Republican nominee right there. Nevada, another one. So there are all sorts of Democratic-held seats here in states that went for Biden in 2020, but they went for him by very narrow margins. And so if those states were to flip in 2024, those Senate seats could become endangered as well. It's not just a product of 2018. It's a product of multiple cycles. You could really go all the way back to the year 2000, which was another very good year for Democrats in the Senate. And they've just accumulated a ton of seats over that time. And now those seats are facing a political environment in a lot of cases they've never faced before.
So Steve, let's just let's say 24 goes like 22 did, with a lot of close races, a lot of election deniers, where everything just seemed to break the Democrats' way. You could actually say the same thing in 2020. You can even go back to 2018 in the race for the House, where, of course, throughout most of the evening, it looked like the Republicans were going to win. And then those late-breaking races, whether it was in Virginia or California, everything has been seeming to break the Democrats' way in 18, 20, 22, which gives them a lot of reasons with the maps, the states you've circled, should give Democrats real pause and understand just how hard they're going to have to work this year. I am curious, though, if 24 does go like 22 and 20 and 18, and all of those states that you've circled break the Democrats' way, even when Republicans take over West Virginia, doesn't that still put the Democratic Party in a position where they have to win one of those red states for them to maintain control of the Senate if Joe Biden is reelected?
Exactly. Almost certainly that would be the case. Because we're talking about this connection between the presidential race and the Senate races. So let's say Biden wins Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and the Democratic Senate candidates are sort of carried with that tide. OK, the Democrats protect all those seats. But as you say, that still leaves the matter of West Virginia, where Democrats pretty much know they're not keeping that seat. Joe Manchin, it doesn't look like, could have even kept that seat. So right now, Democrats have 51 seats in the Senate. If they lose West Virginia, they're immediately down to 50. And that, if Donald Trump actually got elected and Democrats were only at 50, remember the tiebreaker then would be Trump's vice president. So that alone would be enough with a Trump victory for Republicans to get the Senate. But if Biden gets reelected and Democrats lose West Virginia, it still leaves the matter, as you say, of Montana, where Jon Tester's up, and Ohio. Yeah, and if they lose Montana, this is a state that went for Trump by 20 plus points. If they lose Montana, Democrats are then at 49, and even if Sherrod Brown were to win Ohio, they're still below 50. What would they have to do in that case other than win a Montana? I mean, could they flip? Could they flip a Texas? Again, just given how closely these presidential results tend to track with Senate results. Democrats have been eyeing Texas for a long time, but, frankly, a presidential election year seems like probably the most difficult time for Democrats to flip a state like Texas if they're going to. Remember, 2018 was a great Democratic year in that midterm. Ted Cruz had a close call in that midterm, but was still able to win. And then we saw in 2020 with Donald Trump on the ballot in Texas, certainly in the border area there, the Rio Grande area, you had a lot of traditionally Democratic counties that actually moved dramatically toward Trump, which has only complicated the Democrats' political position in Texas. So, yeah, short of winning a Montana, Democrats would have to flip a Republican seat that you look at it right now and you say that's a very tall task for them. Getting a guy like Tester, who's won before reelected, even though it's hostile political terrain, may be their least difficult path.
Yeah, agreed. Let me ask you one final question. I'm just always curious about Texas. Democrats have been talking about how Texas was breaking their way and was going to break their way. And we were very skeptical in 2020 that was going to happen. I am curious, though, with your close look at the state. I think in 12, Barack Obama lost the state by maybe 12, 13, 14 points. Hillary Clinton lost it by about 9 points in 2016. It was down to about 5.5 in 2020 that Biden lost the state. Yes, Republicans keep winning that state, but man, it is really breaking hard in Democrats' direction. It doesn't mean they're going to win it this year or even 28, but I am curious, what is your read on Texas and when it does finally become in reach, even money, so to speak, for Democrats?
Yeah, I mean, you can see here, this was the 2020 presidential result in Texas, and it's a little bit under 6 points here was Trump's victory. Look, Democrats have long anticipated in Texas this idea that ultimately it's going to turn into a competitive state and one Democrats can win. And Democrats, I think, have long anticipated and have been getting substantial improvement, like in the Metroplex, big, densely populated metropolitan area, around Dallas, Fort Worth, North Texas. They've even started to see growth in the Houston area, the Houston suburbs. Certainly, Travis County, where Austin is a big sort of Democratic bastion. And so the Democrats have been improving in some very big sort of bedroom community counties around these areas, and that's been cutting the Republican margin statewide. What I don't think Democrats anticipated, or frankly, I'm not sure anybody anticipated, is what we started to see, especially in 2020, when Donald Trump did win Texas by a little less than 6. Trump had slippage in these areas I'm showing you here, but it's not less population, but Trump right along the border here. I mean, you've got counties here that Hillary Clinton won by 60 points in 2016 that Donald Trump ended up winning or losing only by 5 points. So these areas along the border have dramatically shifted. Republicans even picked up a congressional seat down here a couple of years ago. So that's been a challenge for Democrats. Another challenge for Democrats has been, like areas, sort of rural, blue-collar, working-class areas in East Texas, heavy populations of non-college white voters. Democrats have been losing there for a long time, and I think it got worse for them in areas like that than they thought it could get. So that has created a bit of a buffer for Republicans.